Okay, in this assignment, we're going to be building on all the things that we've already learned. So arcs, slow in, slow out, squash and stretch, overlap and follow through. But now we're going to learn pose to pose animation. So far we've kind of just gone from one frame to the next and moved forward. But now we're going to, well, we'll start off moving forward, but we're going to go back and fill it in with more poses. So I'm going to switch to animation here. Let's go to a front view, or I guess side view. Side view here. And I'm going to select everything here. I'm going to change this dope sheet to action editor just so we just only have this stuff. Okay, let's go back to frame one. Now the way I like to work is I start off by just skipping every other frame just to get the poses. Then once I have the poses, I'll start spreading out the keyframes to get the timing correct. So when you're doing this method, you need to select everything. So you can either drag a box or we can press A to select all. Okay, and I'm going to set my first keyframe. I'm going to do location rotation. I'm going to turn on, I'll leave auto key off. So let's go, we'll just skip 2 frames. So that's our first frame. Okay, now if this thing's jumping, we've got to anticipate that jump. Okay, so we bend down, our foot goes back, we're getting ready to jump. And this is a pretty big jump, so it's going to have to anticipate a lot. So let's start posing this. Maybe this foot goes back, raises up like that. Okay, let's select everything with A, keyframe all of it. The reason that we do that is so that every bone has a keyframe. Because like if I move the character over here and it's, frame 20 or whatever, and I've got all these keyframes, but I didn't keyframe, let's say, the leg because I didn't move it, then from frame 3 to frame 20, the leg's going to go like this, which we don't want. So make sure you keyframe all of the bones. Okay, so now we have our stretch position. Maybe this leg goes up. So to remember to reset the position and rotation of a bone, you press Alt R to reset rotation, Alt P to reset, or sorry, Alt G to reset position, Alt S reset scale. So let's see, maybe this foot's starting to come up here because we're stretching out. Remember to select everything with A, keyframe it. Skip the next 2. All right, so we want this thing to jump. It's got to have an arc. Let's change the color of that. Okay, so just like with the other things we've done, we have slow in and slow out. Okay. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead though, just to the middle, because we're going to go back and we're going to fill that in. So let's see. I don't need to go all the way to the top of that, but the body does need to be there. Let's reset that one. Both these legs are kind of in the middle. Keyframe everything. Keyframe everything. Okay, now we'll come down here. Legs trailing behind. It gives some bend to these toes. Keyframe everything. Okay, so let's just see what our poses look like right now. So this is called scrubbing the timeline. I skip every other frame because it gives us a little bit of an in-between, but not a lot of work from the computer. Okay, that's looking all right. We could even add some stretch to that. Okay, now this is going to squash down. Okay, then we got to overlap and follow through. So we're going to overlap our action. All right, so let's take a look at what that looks like. Catches itself. Okay, now let's look at the animation. It plays too fast, so this is where we can spread out our keyframes. Okay, so we know we want this to be closer. So how long do we want it to take from this pose to this pose? I remember it's 24 frames per second. So if you wanted to take a half second to do that, which is pretty slow for this action, but it would be 12 frames. Okay, so this is where we fill in with more poses, because right now it's just going to do, it's going to auto in between with the computer. So we can kind of figure out what we want. And like we can hold poses longer. So like if I select all those, I can duplicate these. So I just select the summary one, then it selects everything below it. You know, maybe I want that to hold for a second. It's holding. And then comes the jump. That needs to be really quick though. Right? Like whoop. Okay, and then it's in the air. So in between this one and this one, we've got extra data that we need to input. Okay, so like it's in the air, it's not, the foot's not going to be bent like that. Your foot's bent like that because you're putting pressure on your foot and the ground. Well, that does not look good. Let's see. That kind of sticks. You see that? That sticks. We don't like that. So let's get rid of this set of keyframes and we'll bring this one closer. And this needs to be closer too. And I'm actually going to set all of these to linear so I don't have any slow ins and slow outs from the computer. So I'm going to select everything, right click, interpolation mode, remember this, and we're going to set it to linear. Like if we want it to hang in the air a little bit longer, we can just add more frames in between the keyframes. So you just play around with the spacing of your keyframes until it feels right. And maybe your poses need to be changed a little bit, you know, if you go back and you feel like it's just not quite enough. Maybe I want some more spring in that. That feels all right. I could obviously add some more poses, add a little more touches to it to finesse it. But this would be enough for you to do. You have to make it jump to all three. You can make it fall on the last one, but it has to jump 3 times.